If I Should Die by Donevy Westphal. Available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other retailers. Chapter 4. Thursday, June 11th. Through the open window, Mrs. MacDonald heard the whisperings of birds stirring with the dim morning light. In her mind, she imagined the dark eastern sky turning different glorious hues moment by moment. Soon, with the actual dawn, the sun would burst over the horizon, just as Psalm 19 declared, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run his course. She dressed, hung her nightclothes away, and smoothed the sheets and the coverlet into place. Her stockinged feet made no sound as she moved to a deep purple Sausalito chair against the wall beside the pink vanity dressing table. She sat down, put on her headphones, and pressed play on the tape recorder in order to listen to the recorded Bible readings. With her eyes closed, she could feel movement as Ruth crossed to the window seat between the bone-white Brittany antique vanity and the matching Brittany vanity in pale pink and gold. There was a slight pause as Ruth glanced out the window, overlooking the part of the front yard before sinking into the cushions and burying her face in her arms. Mrs. MacDonald's heart still ached at the memory of the loss of Ruth's mom. 42, too young to be gone. The neighborhood had been shocked by the death. It was ruled a heart attack and natural death, but no one believed it. Philip Meechan, he had no reason to be there. He had called for an ambulance at the house from the O'Brien kitchen. Her mother had sent Ruth to her grandfather's on an errand. If only Ruth had stayed home that day, if only. After 20 minutes, Mrs. MacDonald pulled her headset off and closed the recorder. Finished? Ruth selected the brush from the dressing table. Mr. and Mrs. MacDonald had taken her into their home after that fateful morning. Mr. O'Brien had made the decision. So Ruth took her personal items that she wanted from her home, but touched nothing else in the house. He closed up Diana and Ruth's house, and like a time capsule, it was left as it was when her mom had been carried out. Laura and the girls did a fantastic job on this room, Ruth said, as Mrs. MacDonald sat down on the vanity bench in front of the mirror. Yes, the hint of lavender in the paint and the wallpaper repeated, and the furniture and accessories is perfect. I have a picture in my bedroom just like that one, Ruth began to quote. Heavenly Father up above, fill our lives with peace and love. May angels watch over me through the night and wake me with the morning light. If I should die before I wake, I pray, dear Lord, my soul you'll take. That picture at one time hung in my room when I was young, Mrs. MacDonald finished. That is so precious. Do you believe in angels, Mrs. M? Funny you should ask, Ruth. Just yesterday I was thinking on a story my dad told about when we were moving from out home in the city to his uncle's property in the mountains. Our car had broken down that night, and we were stranded a few miles from our destination. A stranger happened by with a team and wagon, and he helped us get us to our property. With his help, we got settled in for the night, a fire in the fireplace and some warm food cooked over the fire, as a torrential rain hit. It said his name was... That's what I was trying to remember, but when Dad asked around, no one in the area had any knowledge of him or anyone by his name. Dad said the man appeared to him one other time. Dad had stopped to chat with friends and at the local mill when there was a huge explosion. No one knew how Dad made it out alive. Dad wasn't quite sure either, but he woke up lying in the grass. His last remembrance was of some Scotsman talking to him about cats. After a slight pause, Mrs. MacDonald spoke again. I believe in more than one kind of angel, though. This last year would have been impossible without you. Friendship works both ways. Where would I be without you and Mr. MacDonald? Ruth's delicate fingers removed tangles and slipped through the long hair as she arranged the silvery white tresses that shimmered in the light. She slipped hairpins in to hold the plait in place, and then stood back to survey her handiwork. The older woman's hair still had enough wave and natural curl to complement her large, wide-set brown eyes, high cheekbones, and pleasant countenance. Looks good, Ruth assessed the tall, slender old woman. Mrs. M was a combination of grandmother figure Ruth had never known, and the mom she had known. Stubborn and independent, Mrs. McDonald had a knack for adventure that kept Ruth on her toes and got them into unusual situations. Keeping Amanda McDonald out of catastrophes must have taxed more than one guardian angel. You sit over there and I'll tend to your hair. Mrs. McDonald picked up a brush and began to brush Ruth's abundant auburn mane. I had a cousin whose hair grew almost to the floor, but her hair wasn't as pretty as yours. Grace is deceitful and beauty is vain. Ruth smiled as she repeated her mother's admonition. Check your pocket and see if there's some false pride hiding in there. I haven't seen any lately. Mrs. McDonald's fingers moved systematically through the long strands. Describe Mr. Armstrong again, would you? She began thoughtful as she waited for Ruth's words. Tall, muscular, and wiry, dark brown hair and eyes, neatly clipped beard and mustache. He could have a lopsided smile, but with the beard and mustache it's hard to tell. He's thoughtful, hard-working, careful, and a sense of humor. I'd say he's about 35, give or take. The older woman pursed her lips, weighing Ruth's words. You've added some details. Thoughtful, hard-working, and careful? What's that mean? He asked to help clear the table. That's thoughtful. He didn't back down from helping Michael with the berries. No half-hearted berry hauler. Careful? And how tall is tall? The older woman began braiding and winding the long hair into a knot. He's almost as tall as Michael, Ruth frowned, wondering at the word careful. He seems honest, but he's not forthcoming. His mind is closed to me in some way. Ruth thought, creasing her brows. Don't frown, Ruth. It will give you wrinkles. How did you know I'm frowning? Ruth's eyes widened as she realized she was frowning. Don't grimace either. Mrs. McDonald slid several pins into Ruth's hair. Honestly, I don't know. I think you have radar? The blind don't see with their eyes, they see with their heart. Ruth gave a quick tug. Let's go, breakfast won't fix itself. Chapter 5. There was a familiar, intense smell of sweat-drenched bodies, fear and terror and smoke. Fire was burning all around, yet he continued his frantic search for his fellow teammate. Brooks! He kicked open the door of the next room. In the far corner, Brooks sat propped up, his rifle trained on the door. Thank God! Robbie Brooks' voice shook with relief. My right leg's broke, my left arm's useless. The far side of the roof caved in, sending flames and sparks in every direction. We're the last ones. I gotta get us out now. Julius bent, and as gently as possible, he draped Brooks across his shoulder. The flames singed his eyebrows. Smoke and falling debris made it impossible to breathe or see. He clutched his friend and his weapon with only one thought: survive. Boom, boom, boom sounded under Julius's window as Sally Lou roared to life. Julius rolled off the bed and hit the floor, Beretta in hand. He searched the room and brought his senses into focus, coming to grips with where he was. His heart thudded against his ribs and began to calm. He holstered his gun and pulled himself to his knees. Hey, what are you doing starting that beast at 3 a.m, he shouted out the window. Sorry, sir, shamefaced. Michael switched off the engine. Oh, man, Julius took a deep breath and ran his fingers through his hair. What time is it? Was I sleeping or what? I'm usually up by now. His mind continued to reel in confusion. What day is it? He crossed to the west window. Hey! He spoke in a more subdued tone now, as the young man appeared on the other side of the breezeway. What time is it? 6:15. I'm sure sorry. Yeah, thanks. Julius rubbed his hands over his face. That's fine, just wonderful. In the bathroom, he splashed water on his face, rubbed the sleep out of his eyes, and stuck in his contacts. That dream. If he'd only stopped dreaming that dream. He sighed and pulled on jeans and a dark blue t-shirt. And all those other dreams. He strapped on his shoulder holster and weapon, slipped his vest over it, touched his hair. He took a deep breath and ambled down the steps to the kitchen. I gotta get a grip. Or else Julius Armstrong, detective extraordinaire, will become ex-detective, and in not a good way. He picked up the note propped on the kitchen counter. Karoff has coffee. Help yourself. Julius found the mugs and poured a cup. Carrying it to the sun porch, he turned a heavy wooden chair so he could look out the windows and sat. He inhaled his first draught of the potent liquid. With closed eyes, he felt it seep through his body. Oh, God, if only those dreams inspectors would stop. The spring inside his mind relaxed and instinct began to take control. He opened his eyes and, looking out the windows, he scanned the backyard and its surroundings. A path led between the pine trees on one side and a small orchard on the other. Beyond the grove, smudges of color indicated buildings. His observations of the surrounding area yesterday had showed him that on the back side of this piece of land lay pasture enclosed in a short line of hardwood trees.